Welcome to UNCAGED, the show that celebrates thought leadership from today's top business leaders. The program provides a voice to executives around the world that are mapping the path to the commerce of tomorrow. Today we have Eyal Worthalter on the show. Hey, Eyal, how are you?
Hey, nice to meet everyone, and thank you for having me here.
It's great to have you on the program, Eyal. And I'm excited to talk to you, Eyal, because the area that you focus on is something that I think pretty much every business person should be focused on these days, which is cybersecurity. Eyal drives global solutions for Utimaco, and he's going to tell us more about what they're doing in that space. But before we get into the latest with the business, tell us a little bit about your career and yourself today.
No, perfect. Thank you. So a little bit about me. I have a technical background in electronics and communications engineering, but I spent most of my career in sales or marketing roles, always customer-facing positions. So I'm also a very deeply curious person, and I've always been interested in learning how technology works, and this led me to move across different industries, all within the enterprise technology space, from infrastructure and networking, down to identity management, and most recently cybersecurity, where I'm at today. And along the way, I earned an MBA. I started focusing a little bit more on business innovation, which led me down a path in a high growth Israeli tech startup. That was my previous role, and learned a ton before I joined Utimaco, a leader in the world of cybersecurity. And this is where we provide enterprise encryption and key management solutions. And I currently lead a team focused on what's called global solution sales.
So Utimaco, and they're really focused on the cybersecurity space. So tell me a little bit more about what Utimaco is doing in the cybersecurity space, and really about kind of the global nature of that project.
Absolutely. So Utimaco is a manufacturer of what's called hardware security modules, or HSMs. These are devices that provide what's called the root of trust to all sorts of industries. So from banking and financial services, payment, to the automobile industry, cloud service providers, and definitely, government and the whole public sector. So we keep what's called the cryptographic keys and cryptographic material along with digital identities. We keep them safe in order to protect, digital infrastructure and, more importantly, high value data assets. Basically, the Utimaco products enable innovation while supporting establishing the trust between identities of people, governments, agencies, and all sorts of organizations. And we have a very comprehensive product family of HSMs. Different products are focused on different industries, but in general they're designed in a way to be highly secure and reliable. This is a company that has been in the market for a while, since the 80s, and the products are deployed across, I think, more than 80 countries, over 1,000 installations. We have, close to 500 people now, and we've been growing a lot in the last 3 years. So I'm very proud of the work we've been doing here in the last 3 years now.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, you guys are crushing it. And there's not a shortage of news about the topic of cybersecurity.
Yes.
I would imagine that any person that goes online to any site or to any social media application or to any news, or pick up any news source, there's at least 5 or 6 articles that have some cybersecurity component about them. And so, tell me a little bit more about what's happening in the marketplace today and where Utimaco's product fits into that.
Absolutely. No. So, I mean, if you look at in general the world of cybersecurity, you're right. There's no shortage of cyber attacks or vulnerabilities discovered everywhere. Data breaches happening all the time. Unfortunately, the attacks have been increasing, both in volume as well as in the degree of sophistication where they're occurring. And in cybersecurity, you have first of all the first layer of security. You have your perimeter security. This means firewalls, antivirus, so everything that prevents attackers from coming in. But not every company can afford to build up a layer and layer of highly secure environments. So that's where we come in at the core, at the foundation level of any organization. You need to store a highly secure piece of information, and basically that's usually the key to encrypting your data, right? So let me take one step back. Normally, data has become really the new oil in this day and age, and so you don't want you don't want information about your customers or about your business exposed. So you normally take that information and you encrypt it. But important about that is, once you encrypt it, you take the key that you use to encrypt that information and you store that in a very secure place. That's exactly where we come in. We have solutions that help customers first encrypt information, classify it, and then secondly, take the key that you use to encrypt that information and maintain it in a safe manner, and use it in a convenient way when you need to change that key or replace it or share it with customers or business partners. That's where key management comes in, and we're a leader in the space of hardware encryption and key management.
Well, I think you guys work with much larger businesses, but I've seen people worry about those key issues with all their cryptocurrencies lately. So that seems to be
exactly. And we've helped secure different cryptocurrency exchanges at the central layer, right, where the information is stored, and that's exactly the case, right? Especially with cryptographic assets and cryptocurrency, you want to make sure that whoever is storing that key, they know very well how to store it, and they have processes and systems around the protection of those master level keys.
So let me change gears a little bit, because
Sure.
the last couple of years have been challenging to operate businesses in general because of the pandemic, and you have a global title, but a global title in a world where travel is challenging, I imagine. So how have you been able to navigate that? And maybe you can share some of the tricks of the trade.
Oh, well, I wish I could say it's been easy. I guess the last 2 years for everyone they've been challenging. Not the least not for me. It's been it's been a weird, strange year. So first of all, most of my team is located in Europe and UK. So that means most of my mornings are swamped with phone calls, because it's their end of their day, the beginning of my day, and we can manage. So I would say 60-70% of everything we do, we can accomplish over Zoom or Teams, over a phone call, right? But there has been a few times where we really wish we could meet face to face, especially when it comes down to defining the direction of a product, or deciding the strategy for a particular for this year or next year, right? Those are things that we really wish we could sit in front of a whiteboard and just hash it out over a day. We've had we've unfortunately haven't been able to do that, and as a result of that, a few times I had to stay up all night watching a whiteboard on Zoom, and that has not been fun. But hey, you adapt, and you do what you need to do to keep pushing. But it is what it is. It's happening across the board. But I would say, luckily, there are all of these tools for collaboration, like Zoom and Teams, and you get to the point where you can communicate very easily with your colleagues and your team. And there's always that chat function where, hey, you need a quick yes or no type of answer, or a quick response about a customer request. there's always chat or text, and we make do with those right now.
Yeah, no, it completely makes sense. Well, I was in the UK last week, and it's still tricky to travel. I'll tell you that much. I don't think I've ever filled out so much paperwork to enter a country. But I think that's probably just a reflection on the reality that we are living through right now.
I'm looking forward to flying there and meeting a few of the folks that have joined my team, because for the better part of this year we've worked over Zoom, and I've gotten to know them, but we haven't met face to face. So hopefully in a few more months it'll become easier.
So as you're shaping things going forward, Eyal, for Utimaco and your global solutions teams, you talked a little bit about those kind of virtual whiteboarding sessions. What are your plans and hopes for the future?
Very good question. So I'm very excited about my current role and my team's objective. It's really about digital transformation, and it's an interesting situation. Let me go back a little bit. Before the pandemic started, I was promoted, and I was asked to form a newly created organization that had the goal of changing the way we sell products into selling subscription-based solutions. So customers are now used to consuming enterprise IT solutions in a subscription model, similar to software as a service, but we sell software only. So it's not your typical SaaS story. We do complex encryption for critical infrastructure, including government and payment ecosystems. So I spent the better part of 2020 in a very unique role, reporting to the CTO between R&D and product management, and putting together the components to sell encryption as a service. And that was very cool. It culminated with us acquiring a startup in the UK called MyHSM at the end of last year. And now, earlier this year, I went back into a sales role. I'm responsible for growing the company we acquired and making sure that all of our salespeople around the world are equipped and enabled to sell subscription-based solutions. And the interesting thing is that not all of them are used to changing the way they sell. The typical transaction is that we go in, we analyze what the customer needs, and then we recommend a product, and we implement it. Right? In a subscription-based approach, the conversation keeps going because the customer might sign up for a test service, and then over the course of the next few months convert to a live production level system. But it's still they're still in a subscription model. They're still paying month over month and are discussing new features that they might need. So it's for me, it's people talk about digital transformation. This particular role I'm in right now, it's about commercial transformation. I'm involved in every aspect of our sales cycle. So from how we generate new leads and prospects, how we price our services, how we even compensate our sales reps globally. And it's a very interesting situation. I'm excited to be at the helm of this initiative. And I'm looking forward to see how we can transition from this way of selling products on premise to 100% selling everything as a service.
That's a fascinating transition that you're in, and not only a fascinating one, but absolutely critical, because that really is the way that more, I would say, nimble businesses are set up now, and how they think about this space and the types of solutions. Coming from a business, I speak as a founder of a company where I came from a world where I sold services, and then I switched to a subscription model myself. But now that I've made that shift, I would never go back. So it's funny that it's very liberating somehow, and I because it becomes much more measurable in a manageable fashion.
Absolutely. Forecasting becomes more reliable. Knowing what you need to do to scale that revenue. becomes a little bit more predictable. So it's all about sort of a database decisions, right? You know how much it costs you to acquire a customer. You know how much it's the lifetime of that customer is gonna return. So it's a very interesting transition. But you're right. Not everybody is used to it, and there's usually a friction, both internal and with some customers that are used to consuming products in the I call it the old-fashioned way. But that I love it. I mean, it's like I said, we all talk about digital transformation. For me, this is commercial transformation, and it's very interesting.
Yeah, no, I've had that same conversation recently, not just in your vertical, but in many other verticals. And it's funny because, let's take something like marketing services. There's a handful of companies that are really applying this thinking in that marketing services space, and they're crushing it. And when you speak to kind of more traditional agencies, it's almost impossible for them to even understand what you mean and why it's so radically different. But when they can implement it, it can really change everything, and it allows you to really kind of model, I think, to scale in a much
Yeah.
more effective way.
Yeah.
So, well, Eyal, you're working on some incredible stuff at Utimaco. Thanks so much for being on Uncaged today.
My
If
pleasure.
if someone wanted to learn more about what you and your team are up to, where would be the best place to connect with you?
Just go to utimaco.com or reach out through LinkedIn.
Well, listen, Eyal, thank you so much for being on the show. We've been speaking to Eyal Worthalter. He is the head of global solution sales at Utimaco. They are one of the leaders in the cybersecurity space and keeping your data safe and secure with the keys. So, thank you so much, Eyal, for sharing everything with us, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you.
Cheers.